In this video, I'll tell you about the main hikes on the south rim of the Grand Canyon, along with some tips for having a successful hike, including gear that you should bring with you. There are actually a greater variety of hikes on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, but since 90% of visitors go to the south rim, we'll include the north rim hikes in our north rim video. The first hike is the Rim Trail. The name explains it pretty nicely. This is a flat trail that goes along the edge of the canyon rim, providing stunning vistas of the canyon interspersed with trees from the forest above. This trail is technically a 13-mile trail, but you can walk any section of it. The most common area is from Mather Point to the Grand Canyon Village, which is about 3 miles, but you can shorten that as well. Here's what I like about this trail. First, you can use the shuttles to get to multiple points along the trail, so you can do a one-way walk and catch a shuttle back to your starting point. Second, it's cooler than the other trails because it does not descend into the canyon. The rim of the Grand Canyon is about 7,000 feet in elevation, and summer temperatures average in the 80s. However, it can get into the 90s like it did when we were there as they were going through a heat wave. Third, walking along the rim gives a different perspective than just seeing the canyon from different viewpoints. You get a better feel for how tall and sheer the walls are. Finally, if you start from Yavapai Point, you'll see a display called the Trail of Time. It is designed to be a geologic timeline. Each meter along the trail signifies 1 million years of geologic history. It helps to give you a sense of deep time and how old the canyon really is. Along the trail, there are different displays teaching about the canyon and different rocks from each layer. Our kids really like spotting and feeling the rocks. The remaining 4 hikes all descend into the canyon. The next hike is the Bright Angel Trail. This is considered the most popular trail in the park. The name Bright Angel comes from Bright Angel Canyon, which was named by John Wesley Powell when he first explored the Colorado River in a boat just like this. The term Bright Angel came from a hymn he remembered while looking at the canyon. It starts at the Grand Canyon Village and descends all the way to the Colorado River at the bottom of the canyon, but you can just hike down as far as you would like and then turn around. There are a few main markers along the way. At the beginning of the hike, you'll encounter 2 tunnels. These are creatively called the first tunnel and the second tunnel. At 1.5 miles, you'll reach the similarly creatively named 1.5 mile rest house. This is your chance to fill up on water. Most people turn around here, which the park recommends if you're a casual hiker. If you're confident, you can continue on to other markers such as the 3-mile rest house and Indian Garden. But don't overestimate your ability. The hike out is steep and could take twice as long as it took you to get down. To get to 1.5 mile rest house, you'll descend about 1,000 feet. Just for a little perspective, there are only 3 major league ballparks that are over 1,000 feet above sea level: the Colorado Rockies, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Atlanta Braves. At the Grand Canyon, you'll start at 6,800 feet and descend to 5,700 feet. A lot of coastal people are not ready for the altitude of the West. A good thing and a bad thing about this trail is it sits back in a canyon. This provides some shade depending on when you start, but it means that your view of the Grand Canyon below is mostly the same throughout the hike, unless you can get down to Indian Garden. The trail was partially established by the Havasupai Indians, but was later taken over and expanded by a private landowner named Ralph Cameron. Cameron charged people a fee of $1 to use the trail. Water and restrooms cost extra. He did this because at the time it was the only way from one rim to the other, which is about 11 miles as the Ravenflies. You wouldn't think anyone would choose to use a grueling trail like this to get to the other side of the canyon until you realize that to drive around to the other side takes over 4 hours today, so imagine how long it took before the automobile. Cameron was a bitter enemy of the National Park Service, so when it was created as a national park, he maintained ownership of the trail and continued to charge tolls. This prompted 2 other trails to be built to get around Cameron's irritating toll. The South Kaibab Trail was one of these trails. Today this trail also goes down to the Colorado River where it meets up with the Bright Angel Trail, becoming one trail and continuing to the North Rim. Confusingly, this trail goes through Bright Angel Canyon, but it's called the North Kaibab Trail. Go figure. There are 2 main things to know about the South Kaibab Trail. First, it's only accessible by shuttle. The Orange Shuttle line will take you there, as well as the Hikers Express, which runs very early in the morning, typically for hikers going from rim to rim. Second, there is no water on the trail, so you must carry a lot of water with you. As with the Bright Angel, there are also landmarks on this hike. Point is about 1 mile down. Views of the canyon start to open up here. Cedar Ridge is a little farther. I really enjoyed this section, although you'll lose some of the shade from the canyon once you leave Ooh-Ah Point. Some of Cedar Ridge reminded me of Angel's Landing at Zion National Park. We hiked this on Father's Day. The rest of the family turned back at Ooh-Ah Point, but my father-in-law and I continued to Cedar Ridge, and we were so glad we did. They say the hike back is twice as long, but comparing a hike down with kids and a hike up without kids evens things out a little bit. Since the South Kaibab Trail and the Bright Angel Trails are the only two that get down to the Colorado River from the South Rim, they are both used for mule rides. If you pass mules, the general rule is to stand by the canyon wall while they pass, but always do as the trail guide tells you. Some people complain about the manure on the trails, although I didn't mind it at all. The next two trails are mule-free trails. They also have far less hikers because they aren't marked or maintained as well as the Bright Angel and South Kaibab. They also do not have water. Hermit Trail was one of these trails built as an alternative to Cameron's Bright Angel tolls. The little Hermit's Rest building back here, they have restrooms and a place to fill up on water right there. And then if you go down that road right there, you can go to the Hermit's Rest Trail. I really wanted to do this trail, but I didn't have the time, so I'll have to wait for next time. It's located at the Hermit's Rest Stop, which requires a shuttle to get to during the summer months. I've heard glowing reviews of this trail, mostly due to the lack of crowds and mules. But remember that it doesn't have any water and that it's just as steep as the other hikes. They all descend about 1,200 feet within the first 1.5 miles. Our final trail is Grand View Trail. This is an old mining trail and as such is not maintained well. It's also steep and does not have water. Of the 4 main South Rim hikes into the canyon, I believe this is the least traveled, but there are some people who hike this trail down to Horseshoe Mesa and camp overnight. Okay, now time for a few hiking tips. First, start early. If you're hiking in the summer and you're going into the canyon, it's best to start before 8 o'clock and preferably before 7 o'clock. Although the temperatures aren't usually as high as they were when we were there, they can still get hot. And consider this crazy fact. For every 1,000 feet you descend into the canyon, the temperature rises 5 degrees. If you start too late, you'll have no shade and it'll just keep getting hotter the farther you go. Second, don't overestimate your ability and don't underestimate the canyon. I heard over 600 people require some sort of assistance by park rangers each year due to exhaustion or injuries, and over 100 need a helicopter rescue. The ranger told us the rescues can cost you a lot of money, especially if the park helicopter is already being used for someone else and they have to call in a backup. Third, prepare for a lot of climbing. If you really want to hike into the canyon and you're not a hiker, I recommend getting used to walking uphill somehow, like walking stairs at the gym, for example. Although we aren't hardcore hikers, we're used to steep inclines because almost all the hikes we do involve mountains. But if you're not used to it, a little practice could go a long way. It's not to intimidate you too much. It's really doable to do a 3-mile round-trip hike into the canyon. But one thing we noticed is that when we passed people coming up from the canyon, we didn't see the usual happy hiking faces we usually do at national parks. It can be a grind. Now let's review a few things that you should consider taking with you on a day hike into the canyon. We recommend a camelback that carries 3 liters of water. This will also allow you to carry some salty snacks, Gatorade, a map, and sunscreen. You need more than just water. You need snacks and electrolytes. I highly recommend a wide-brimmed hat. I found my cowboy hat far nicer than a baseball cap, and I liked the look of it. Sunglasses are nice as well. I liked my Hoka shoes because they had better stability than a lot of shoes, but they weren't as heavy as hiking boots. A lot of people we saw used hiking poles, and I can see why. If you get adjustable poles, you can lengthen them for the trip down and shorten them for the trip up. I don't think you need layers of clothing unless you're going farther than 3 miles. We saw people wearing pants and long sleeve shirts. The mule rides into the canyon require these, but I'm not sure it's that necessary if you aren't going deep into the canyon. You won't have cell service in the canyon, but I don't think you need a GPS unit unless you're going deeper into the canyon or perhaps on the lesser marked and lesser traveled Hermit Trail and Grandview Trail. Similarly, the Park Service recommends a first aid kit, although I'm sure very few take one unless they are going deep into the canyon. In summary, I'm glad we hiked as a family into the Grand Canyon twice. It provided different views of the canyon, and it gave us at least a little perspective of just how immense the canyon is. And I think it gave our kids a little sense of accomplishment, even if they won't admit it. If you're visiting Grand Canyon, you can watch our Grand Canyon playlist. Also, please see our links in the description for more details about the hikes and the gear, as well as travel and audio guides for the Grand Canyon and other national parks. And we're 1,200 feet down. To get to the very, very bottom, it's about another 5,000 feet or so. So we're just barely scratching the surface here. It is mind-blowing.